It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing the Dubuque head women's wrestling coach, Coach Dennis Hall. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Glad to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in coaching in college women's wrestling?
Actually, I took a men's assistant job here last fall, not this fall, but the fall before. And at that point, they asked if, they wanted to start a women's program here at the university. And they asked if I'd be willing to do it. And I said, of course. Wrestling's wrestling. It doesn't matter the style or the gender. So it was a no-brainer to become the head women's coach.
What was that experience like for you getting involved in the sport of wrestling?
I got involved when I was a little kid. I was about 4 years old. I had two older brothers that wrestled, and I'd have to go to practice every night with them and watch. And finally, my mom let me start at a little bit over, probably almost 4.5 years old. And, I fell in love with the sport because it was on me. It wasn't on anybody else. I just, what you put into the sport is what you get out of the sport. So it was kind of a good fit. And, having two older brothers wrestling, you not know how to defend yourself against them. That helped me.
Of course, how is that like getting into the USA wrestling and becoming an Olympian?
I started out. I wrestled on a junior world team when I was in high school. I went down to Pensacola, Florida. They had the Olympic trials there, and I wrestled in the junior world trials, and I made the junior world team. And I got to see a lot of the guys that were, guys I looked up to, and got to watch them compete, make Olympic teams. And I'm like, yeah, I can do that. If I can make a junior team, why can't I make a senior team? So ever since I was in first grade, I wanted to be an Olympic wrestler. So I kind of knew that wrestling was my sport at a very young age.
What was that experience like for you competing at the Olympics? And after the Olympics, what was it like getting into coaching?
Okay, competing at the Olympics, I competed in 3 Olympic Games. Barcelona was my first Olympics in 1992, and that was awesome. I mean, it was like a dream come true, and being on a world stage, wrestling some of the best wrestlers throughout the world, it was eye opening. I mean, I think I went 2 and 3 at that tournament, placed seventh, or eighth, placed eighth. But the neat part of the Olympics is all the great athletes all coming together at one time. And just, I remember cutting weight outside our place we stayed at, and there were boxers down there. I saw the gymnasts, they were walking down, the Olympic champions. So it was a pretty awesome feeling. And then after the Olympic Games is over, you go out to the White House, you meet the president. I met the president at the White House, got my picture taken with him. And I remember sitting in, they called it the Lincoln chair. Hopefully I don't get in trouble for saying I sat in it, but I was just watching all the Olympians with their medals around their neck. And I said, I got to come back here in 4 years and have a medal around my neck. Well, fast forward to 96, I end up making an Olympic team. I'm picked to win the Olympics. I end up getting a silver medal. And I didn't get to go back to the White House because my ex-wife was pregnant with my first child at the time. But I did got that medal. So then my last Olympics was in Athens, Greece. And that was really cool because that's where it all began. And, just being seeing the history that they got over there it's eye opening. It just, stuff is so old, and, on the sightseeing part was awesome, and just the weather was great. The competition was good. I went 1-1. I beat the guy that won or ended up fourth the year before, and then I lost to the Ukraine. And the way they had the pools back then is if you lost in your pool, you were out of the tournament. So I ended up not placing in that. But the experiences were stuff that you'll remember the rest of your life and be able to tell stories from those tournaments.
Of course, after your time in the Olympics, what was it like getting into coaching and going into college coaching?
I coached a youth club a private youth club while I was training. Plus, I coached at Division III up in Stevens Point, Wisconsin. I was a men's assistant for 3 years while I was training. And then after that, after I got done competing, I did kids club for a while. And I coached up in Northern Michigan at their Olympic Training Center for Greco up there for a year. And then I came back home because my ex-wife didn't want to move up there with me. So I came back home to be with my kids. And it then fast forward, when I got hired for this job, I was ready to go to the next level of college coaching. And I took the job, and, I work with John McGovern. He's a men's coach. He's a great man. And for me, it's about changing the athletes' lives and helping them figure out the sport at the same time. Just telling people, you know what, we're going to face battles every single day of our life. How are we going to handle those battles? Are we going to fold, or are we going to fight through them? And, being at the college, a lot of kids struggle. They got a lot of things on their plate, and just being there for them and helping them reach their goals in wrestling is an awesome experience.
What was that experience like for you being an assistant coach and getting to learn before taking over as a head coach?
I was assistant up at UWSP back in early 2000s, and that, just seeing all the work that you have to do, you don't realize how much office work there is until you are an assistant, and some of that gets thrown at you. You think coaching is wake up, go to the gym, and coach all day and then come home. Well, probably 60% is office work. So the office work stuff, I still need help with that sometimes from Coach McGovern, who I coach on the men's program with as well right now. So I'm head women's coach. I'm men's assistant coach. I'm the RTC coach, which is Regional Training Center for the Olympic Styles coach. So my plate's pretty full right now, but somehow it works out.
Of course, what was that transition like going from being an assistant coach on the men's side to then taking over and becoming the head women's wrestling coach?
The transition was hard because as I'm the assistant coach, I was recruiting for the men's program, but also recruiting for the women's program because it was a brand new program. So I had to try and get numbers. We ended up with 9 girls on the team this year. I'm looking to increase my numbers, get it up to about 20, 25 next year. And I think the challenge is the time, just being able to make the time to do the recruiting. And that's what you find out as being a sole head coach is, there's only so much time in a day, and you got to have a life outside of wrestling too.
Of course, as a head coach, what has it been like bringing in a new program such as the women's wrestling, where it's new in most college sports?
The hard part, the NWCA, National Wrestling Coaches Association, does the national championships, and as a new program, you can't control how many girls you have. So the challenge for me this year was to keep them all healthy so we could compete in the postseason national tournament. That's probably the hardest thing because, with the men, you can, you know, the numbers are already built, so you can run practices a little bit harder. But, with the women, one thing is they defend a lot more with their head. So there were more concussions until I changed up the training. So I just had to be smarter as a coach.
Of course, what has it been like, obviously, coming in and building a culture for the women's wrestling?
I just tell the girls, I said, we're not here to take second or, we're here to do our best. And, we want to build a championship program here. I have a good base of girls that work hard. We're lifting 2 days a week right now, and we're getting ready for our regionals. Our regionals is on the 25th. So hoping to qualify, 3, 4, maybe even 5 for the national championships for the women's.
For you as a head coach, what was that feeling like the first time you got to step onto that mat?
For me, it was neat. We had 2 duels this year because of the schedule. Is it with most of the tournaments or whatever? We only had 6 to 7 girls competing. So for the duels, it was just go out there and execute as good as you can. And it was neat. We had our first home duel here against Buena Vista, and we ended up winning, I believe, all the matches. So it was kind of neat. And, we took a picture with the Buena Vista team, and I did a little work after with them and just, trying to grow the sport overall.
What is that experience like, getting to host a dual meet in women's wrestling?
It's pretty neat because, a lot of schools here in Iowa, it's our first year. There were 3 or 4 teams, I think, that were first year programs here in Iowa. And, to me, the hosting it was okay, it's here. And next year it's going to get better. And the year after it's going to get better. Everything, starting out, it may not be what you want, but you know what? If you have the vision to build numbers and do it the right way, it gets more exciting each year.
Who are some of the teams that you compete against in your conference?
Wartburg, Central, Buena Vista, Simpson, Loris, and us. So right now we got all those teams that have women's programs.
Of course, what is that experience like in the home atmosphere versus going away and competing away?
I think it's the same. I mean, to me, it's we're getting ready for another match. So I don't try and have the girls think too much because when you're thinking, you ain't thinking about what you need to do. So we just go in there, hey, we're going to another tournament or a dual meet, and we're just going to go do our best.
What is that like, getting to see those non-conference teams like Indiana Tech and Great View?
We wrestled down in Iowa, in Coralville, Iowa, at Extreme Arena. We wrestled the girls from Life University. We wrestled girls from University of Iowa, and we ended up losing to Iowa. And I think we might have beat some girls from Life University, but one of my girls, my starter at 43, had the Iowa girl pin. They just didn't call it. So, I mean, we're right there. And for a first year program to go compete at that level, a lot of coaches want an easier schedule. My girls told me they want a hard schedule right away. So we did a hard schedule, and they're constantly getting better.
Of course, can you talk about the culture that you've built for the women's wrestling program?
The culture is position. If we're in better position than our opponent, we got opportunities to score. So I'm a big fanatic on being in the right position. If you're in the right position, good things happen. So we do a lot of slow drill, making sure that we're in the right position to execute the techniques that are given to us at that point by being in better position.
What does that prospective student athlete what do you look at in those prospective student athletes when out on the road recruiting?
For me, I look at, okay, do they go to class all the time? How's their GPA? Because if they don't have the grades and they're lazy in school, they're not going to make it. I'm just being honest, unless they change. Some of them do change, but reality is I look at their grades. I look at how they done, if they've wrestled any freestyle in the past. That's not a deciding factor, but it helps if they have a little bit of freestyle experience, because then they know what they're getting into with women's wrestling being freestyle in college. But a lot of times I like to see them wrestle. I watch a lot of videotape on the girls and see, okay, this one likes to wrestle a little bit more upper body. This one's aggressive. I'm looking for the qualities of a champion. Do they have the fight?
What does that official visit look like at Dubai when the prospective student athletes comes to campus?
Yeah, at Dubuque, what we do is we have them meet with admissions. They go through with counselors, talk about the program that they want to do, and then they get a tour of the campus. The campus is relatively small. They get to see the dorms where they'll be living. They get to see the chow halls, and then they come over to the athletic department. We meet in the office probably for about a half hour. I answer any questions. I tell them about the program, tell them about the girls. And then usually I try and have them meet 2 or 3 girls on a team, and I step out of the room and I let them just talk, and they're going to find out if they want to be here or not.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen put on that Dubuque singlet for the first time?
It's cool. It's cool. You know, to see the girls wrestling and getting experience to wrestle in college, it's awesome. I was a former Wisconsin Badger my freshman year in college, so I know what it feels like for them. So to me, I think I just want to prepare them as best as we can prepare and give them the chance to go out there and fight for 6 minutes if need be.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen achieve those first milestones, like those first pins?
Anytime you get a win, it's a good thing, but even, so we've lost to some girls this year early in the season, and then we wrestle them later and we tech fall them. So I know we're doing things right. We're making good progress in our training. I can see it daily in the practice room that the girls are getting better.
What is it like as a head coach seeing those seniors put on that singlet for the last time and then representing Team USA or Canada?
Don't know. I don't have any seniors this year. So my oldest girl is a sophomore. So I'll have her back for a while.
What would that feel like, obviously, to see those wrestlers once they become seniors go on
It's
and
hard.
compete
It's
in
hard
professional
because
wrestling?
for their last match, they may not ever compete again, and unless they're a national champion, they probably didn't reach their goals, and so you feel bad. But if they, a lot of times if they're win their last match, that's what I like to see happen.
What will it feel like to see those wrestlers go on and compete in AEW or WWE after their collegiate time?
We won't be competing in any of that stuff in that type of wrestling. We will be trying to make Olympic teams.
Of course, what are some of your future plans for Dubai in the future?
Uh, for Dubuque, get 20 wrestlers and try and 20 to 30 wrestlers on the team and build a team that can win a national title at the women's level, at the NCAA level, because in 2026, they're going to go to an NCAA sport. So,
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year of college women's wrestling?
ask lots of questions. Don't think you know everything. Ask lots of questions, work hard, and have fun.
What advice would you give those wrestlers out there looking to go compete professionally after their collegiate time?
For the athletes that want to go wrestle at Olympic level, you know what, you gotta find a great training situation. If it's here in Dubuque, stay here. If we don't have what you think you need to go to that next level, and then find a place that can help you get there. But I can tell you one thing: I've coached Olympic wrestlers. I got guys down here right now training for the Olympic trials for this April, and you know, just you, trust your gut. Trust your gut instinct. If it feels right, stay. If it doesn't, find somewhere where you can reach your goals.
What advice would you give those athletes out there looking to get into coaching after their career ends?
You know, um, for a lot of the athletes, I think they gotta pay attention to the details of the sport. And at the same time, volunteer, help your coaches recruit, help your coaches do office work, so you get a full picture of what coaching is truly like.
What advice would you give those head coaches looking to build their own women's wrestling program?
You got to pound the pavement, you got to make a lot of calls. Recruiting is everything. If you don't recruit uh, the girls well, that's going to be a problem, because your room's going to be full of people that are part-time wrestlers instead of full-time wrestlers.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the Dubuque Women's Wrestling Program?
I know we have on Instagram, there's a Dubuque Women's Wrestling page. I don't really do social media much. I do a little bit on Facebook. So you could find myself on Facebook, just Dennis Hall. And that's really about it.
Thank you again, Coach Dennis Hall, for your interview, and best luck in your future with the Dubuque Women's Wrestling.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram and Brandon Sports Talk Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Dennis Hall, for your interview, and best luck in your future.
Thank you, and good luck to you too.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.